For now, I want to turn the microphone over to my partner, Cris Arens, to talk about the differences between buying and selling in our industry.
Thank you, and I also want to just thank the NCBFAA for hosting this event. I've been to so many of the conferences that the NCBFAA has hosted over decades, and Ron, Jan, and I will be in New Orleans in April. We're really looking forward to meeting a lot of you down in the Big Easy. As Jan mentioned, I'm going to spend a few minutes just kind of talking about buy-side and sell-side differences. And then we'll talk a little bit about M&A as it relates to size and the type of companies involved. The first area you need to understand when engaging an M&A advisor like Logisyn is, are we on the buy side? Are we contacting you on behalf of a buyer? Or are we just trying to talk to you to engage you in terms of a sell side process? At Logisyn, when we're on a buy side, we're doing a retainer-based search. So the buyer has hired us, they have a contract with us, they pay us monthly, we've gotten to know their business, we've understood what they're looking for, and we go to market and try to find companies that meet that. We become a big part of their corporate development team. They pay us based on our knowledge of logistics and experience with M&A. Some companies may have really good finance people that they just want to get the introduction and they'll take over the due diligence. Others want us to run the whole process with them. If Logisyn ever contacts you on behalf of a buyer, some of you on this call probably have already gotten contacted by Matt or Azil or somebody on our team about buy side. Just realize that we're representing the buyer's interests. Logisyn will always be very upfront with that, including telling you who the buyer is and giving you some background on what they're looking for, so we don't waste your time. I always warn my entrepreneur friends, whether I'm shooting pool or playing golf with them, they'll say, hey, I just got this buyer is really interested in my company. And, you just got to be a little bit aware of phishing by buy-side advisors. Sometimes they'll contact you on behalf. We have this buyer that's very interested in your company, but really they're not engaged. They don't have a retainer. They're not part of the corporate dev team, and they're just trying to engage you so they can, talk to you about their other services and retainers that they can sign you up for. Some of you probably have already experienced some of that. So, from the sell side, that's where we spend most of our time. If you're a potential seller looking to hire an M&A advisor, and there are lots of good advisors out there, we have really strong competition. The first question we're all going to ask you is about size. How many offices, how many employees, but most importantly in terms of valuation is, as Jan was talking about earlier, is what's the EBITDA? And if you don't know what EBITDA means and you didn't pick up on all that from Jan's thing, we can certainly talk to you about that afterwards. But everybody wants to know, what's the EBITDA size? Let's look at it for the last 5 years, last 3 years, how they doing on trailing 12 months, that kind of thing. And most of the large M&A firms are looking for sellers with 10 million or up in EBITDA, and it's simply because of the process that they have to run, whether they're publicly traded or they're owned by a big private equity group and using other people's money. They really have to run a process. We had a deal we were working on with 120 people in our data room, right? Most of them were lawyers and high-end accounting firms, so you can imagine how much that was costing them. So these M&A companies that deal with these really big deals, they're running, kind of an auction process, and they're going to thousands of private equity companies, and, they're kind of running that kind of process. Logisyn, we work very closely with private equity too, but the difference is, we're really focused on private equity that knows what a freight forwarder and a customs house broker is in this kind of example, but also if it's truck brokerage or warehouse and distribution or drayage or whatever it might be, there's certain private equity groups that have decided that's what they're looking for. So we really help those companies kind of, we bring that company to market when we go down the path, but where we add probably the most value is in our strategic network of companies that we've worked with over decades. When we're on the sell side, we're representing the seller, and our job is to run a limited auction process. That's how we run our process, where we bring in maybe 50 to 100 buyers that might be in a process, sometimes less if the seller wants us to run a more tight process. And our job is to increase the value for our client and bring the best terms to our client. So we're running a limited auction by bringing companies that we know it's a good cultural and strategic fit to the table. The scope and effort of what we put into a sell side mandate is much more complex, than it is on the buy side. We analyze the company, we build the story from financials, operations, sales, tech, agent networks, trade lanes, many other things. And this is what we call, it all goes into a book, which we call the SIM. It's kind of an industry term, the SIM, Confidential Information Memorandum. And that can be anywhere from 30 pages, for a small company to 150 pages, to some of the larger companies. We also spend a lot of time building the data room, which is absolutely critical, in two real groups, the pre-LOI data room and the post-LOI data room, for the due diligence period, and helping organizing all the financial and operational data. Because of the process and time on a sell side engagement, our sweet spot is typically 2 million in EBITDA to 20 million in EBITDA. And that's where we like to play. But what we're realizing in this space, especially in freight forwarding customs house brokerage, is that there are a lot of really high quality companies that maybe decided not to expand globally. And, the owner is one person owner, and he or she, built a great company, and now they're at retirement age. Their kids don't want anything to do with the business. And, they've reached out to us to see if we could help them, but they're below our kind of minimum. So we've developed a signature deal process, which is more streamlined, and that's really worked out a lot for people. And we have lots of references that we can talk to you about with that if we get to that point. Regardless of whether it's a buy side or sell side, we always warn clients that getting from start to finish is not easy. You hear buyers, you hear sellers that we'll be talking to, and they're like, well, we had offers last year, and when you dig into the offer, well, you never even really got to an LOI, or you got to an LOI, but you never even got to a stock purchase agreement. And that's where all the fighting really starts, right? So, it's not an easy process. You have to be committed to the process, and you have to see it through to the end. Hopefully this didn't come off as a commercial, and looking forward to more questions at the end of this. And if we don't have time, again, we'll be in New Orleans. At this point, I'm going to turn it back to Ron, and it's Ron's birthday today. But we won't sing him happy birthday till the end, maybe. And then he's going to talk about evolution and changes currently happening in deal making.
Thanks, Chris. Good information. I really want to see if we can get 600 people singing me happy birthday. That'd be kind of interesting. It actually is my birthday today. But I'm 29. I've been in freight forwarding and customs house brokerage for the last 29 years. So that's why I got all the gray hair that I do have.